All right, first thing I want to talk about is I graded maybe 9 out of 15 or 10 out of 15 of your assignments. And I just want to go back over and talk briefly about some of it. You know all how I feel about the black screen of death. So if you're not sure, put it on the discussion board. But I think I had all you in 161, right? So no more black screen of death. That just kills me. Makes it so boring. Somebody used pi, P-I-E. Was that you, CJ?
What?
Did you
I
use
use,
a
yeah, I use,
variable named pi?
uh, yeah, why?
It's
I
just
think it's,
pi. It's not PIE.
oh, it's just PI?
Yeah,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure I put PI. Let me see.
All right. So anyhow, you just used it as a variable name. I thought you were having fun, and that's fine. But for the pi, you all use 3.1415926 blah 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 blah. CJ, you tried to use something m underscore pi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Did
was me
that?
actually.
I'm sorry.
I did that too.
Stephen did that. Matthew, did that work for you? Because I couldn't get it to work. Not Matthew. Who was I talking to? CJ.
If you import the right library, it works.
Yeah, I
Okay.
imported a library and I did m underscore pi for my project.
Okay. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't see the m underscore pi, but I know there was a search at one time for us to find pi, unlike math.pi from Java class. So that was one of the things. When you're writing a class, I still have a couple of folks, and I think I need to re-emphasize this in 120. A class should be separate from the demo. And I know a lot of you like to save time and combine the two and add the demo after, but let's stay away from that. Several of you did do it as a project. You took advantage of what you just learned and you worked on it. I know Anna did it, Matthew did it, Peter did it. Like I said, I didn't grade them all, but that's great practice, and I'm glad you did. What else? Couple of you use methods, which was good. You know, you need to get into that habit of using what you know. Even Matthew went as far as he played with the rays and had to use or enter 3 radiuses and heights and so on. Quick question. How many of you made test data and tried to, 1, 2,
Yeah, I did.
a couple? Okay. So hopefully that's still in your head after 161 to be, including that thought process of test data and writing some things ahead of time.
I had a question though.
Yeah.
It seemed like the procedural, like if you wanted them to come out exactly the same way at the end, the procedural one was just a much shorter version of the object.
Yeah, but this was all about practice, because the math behind this program wasn't hard math, and it was to get you, you've been off for a month or so. Imagine my 162s in the fall, most of them haven't programmed for 3 months. So I just need to get everybody back up to speed. And, but overall, it was pretty good from what I've seen. Like I said, I haven't gotten to all of them. I still have about 5 maybe to do, or 6. But when you have 6 programming classes and a trig class, and my due dates are usually Sunday nights, Mondays into Tuesdays are pretty interesting for me. They keep me pretty busy. Okay, so let's switch over to the dot cam and the other day we started and we were talking about section 14.3, and the conversation was about assigning one variable to another, and the equal sign always worked. I mean, if I said num1 gets a value of num2, we were all happy. It was no big deal. Okay, but when I tried to take a different member like an object and assign it, we were kind of happy in C++ because the object did get the values from the other object. It wasn't an address copy. It was a little bit more than an address copy. It copied the current variables. Now, the problem was, what if my current variable inside of that object was either a string or maybe it was an array. Well, at that point, only the address is copied. So we did some talking about doing this thing called a deep copy, where I had to go in and copy everything individually, and each element had to get copied over. Okay, so as I said, problem is copying more than addresses like arrays. And the solution is one of two: copy constructors, or we're going to actually take a look at something I think it's pretty cool, is overloading an operator. And you all know this isn't the equals, this is the assignment operator. And I want to be able to overload that. So if I do in fact say object 1 gets the value of object 2, that everything is copied over. It goes deep into getting all the elements of the arrays, all of the pieces of data in a string, all of that get copied over. Okay, so the other day I did give you chapter 14 and all of the code listings, or and he calls them programs, all of the code listings for chapter 14. And we're going to be taking a look at some of those. But the first thing we're going to take a look at is the copy constructor. So if you want to go and grab student test score.h, you should be able to take a look at a header file and how we're going to include something called a copy constructor. So right now I'm looking at student test scores version 1. And I probably didn't have to go there to share my screen. So you should have had a chapter 14. And in 14, I want you to load up student test scores version 1. And as you see, the type is just a header file. And again, you can either watch me or you can load it up on your own. I come into this header file for student scores. I see, let's
Can you
see.
show your full screen? We're just seeing the internet browser.
Okay, let me stop. Don't say it. Don't say collaborate and listen. Don't anybody say collaborate and listen. Matthew, you said that, didn't you?
Looks good, thank you.
Okay. When I said stop, did you say collaborate and listen?
Thankfully, I was still on mute.
Okay. All right. So I come into this class. Again, this is a header file. I have my IFN def. I have my define. All of those are in there. I come down. I have some private members. First one's a string. Second one is a double that points to, boy, I'll tell you what, documentation sure makes things nice, doesn't it? It's going to get me ready to work with an array. Points to a memory address, calling it test scores. Then I'm going to be able to go there and put in doubles. I see int number of test scores. Good. Once again, this is something we haven't seen very often, but also in my private definition, starting at line 17, I have a private function. This one's called create test scores. It takes the size coming in of the array and it creates an array of test scores. Test scores are what we had in line 12 up above, but this is going to allow me to create the size that I want. Okay, good. I come down. Line 24, I start with a nice little constructor. I bring in the name and the number of test scores. Later, I'll fill that array with test scores if I need to. Line 29 talks about something called a destructor. Anybody quickly know what a destructor would do? Can you figure out what a destructor would do?
Deletes the object.
It deletes, in this case, what's it deleting?
Your array of test scores.
Right, array of test scores. Why might I need to delete an array of test scores? Yeah, this is something new. So what if I have an array of test scores and I have 20 of them in there? And all of a sudden, for some reason, I want to redo this and so on. and I want to reuse the variable name test scores. Well, until I basically trash it and free up the memory, I can't really reuse it. And you're going to see a better reasoning for this probably by next week of why we need this thing called a destructor. But its idea is it's going to free up memory of something that's in the class because I want to reuse it. And maybe I don't have 20 items in it this time. Maybe I only have 8 items in it. All right, so what do I have? I have a set test score, set student name, get test score, get test score. Okay, so everything looks pretty good, clean and simple. What I'd like you to do now is that was version 1, and I'd like you to go and load up version 2. Okay, so I'm going to share screen again. I'm going to come here. Student test scores version 2. All right, is the code on the window or just that? Can anybody see my 14.2?
No.
No.
Okay, so I clearly have to stop sharing and start sharing again. So 14.2 has everything the same except what starts on line 29. Again, 14.2 is just the exact thing as 14.1, but now I'm adding this copy constructor on line 29. Let's see. I already have a constructor on line 24. So now I am, in fact, overloading because I have more than one constructor. And let's see what's going on in this copy constructor. I have the name of the class, student test scores. I have a parameter, just one in my parameter list. I have const, which says, please don't screw up the one that's coming in. I'm calling it OBJ, right? It's the address, ampersand, address of an object that is of type test scores. Now, as you can see, I come into line 31. The current object student name is referred to by just student name. Now, if I wanted to, I could come in front here and type in this dot student name. Okay, this is a pointer that will point to the current class's student name. In the old days, back in C and before some of the stuff was created and added to C++, we had to put this in for all of our members in the referencing class. But we don't have to do it, but you may see it's called the this operator. And again, it's a pointer to the one in the current class. So don't panic if you see it. All right, so what do I have? I have the student name from the parameter called object that's coming in being copied over. The number of test scores is being copied over. And then finally, this is where that deep copying comes into play. I'm able to copy all of the individual elements of the array over one by one to fill that array. Okay. Again, I copied the student name over. I copied the number of scores over. I created the new array, and I added all of the values to it. Questions?
Why is it passing the reference to the object as opposed to the object there in 30?
Because I'm going to go to the address and then get it from there. If I copied the object over, I wouldn't get the actual, right? I know this. I'm trying to put it in straight words. When I copy over, Well, let's try it. We don't have a demo program to take it out. You need to copy the address so that you can get to access to each members. If you don't copy the address, there's just such a slight difference. I'm not phrasing it correctly, I know that, but you have to pass it over as the address. I know you're thinking, well, when I pass it as the address, it allows me to make modifications, but I'm locking that down by putting in the const. So it's like a yin yang kind of thing, but there is a slight reason why. Sorry, I don't have a better answer than that.
All right, thanks.
All right, if I come back to this screen, okay, we took care of my notes on Copy Constructor. And again, it does that deep copy. Okay, we took a look at 14.1, we took a look at 14.2. Next section is 14.5. All right, and now we're going to get into the second way that will allow me to copy one object over to another. Okay, this was sort of a cheat, and it works. You know, I can just do, when I create the object, have a parameter that's the other object and copy everything in. So the copy constructor is one way. Second concept is to do this thing called overloading an operator. And in Java, you know, the big operator we overloaded, that was overloaded for us, was the plus, and all the many things that the plus can do. Okay, so I want to be able to overload an operator. I want you to go load up something called student test scores. And we're looking at version 3. This is going to get a lot nicer when we go to working with the next class. 14.6, student test scores. All right, let's see. I'm still working with student test scores. I go to my, can everybody share my screen, see my screen?
No.
Okay, stop and share again. All right, so I still have my privates, my student name, my number of test scores, and the array of all the test scores. I now have, as a standard, my copy constructors included. And now I'm going to come all the way to the very end, and I'm going to see an operator being overloaded. The operator that's being overloaded is the assignment operator. That's my equals operator. Okay. What do I have? I have this, excuse me, darn peanuts. I'm going to come in, and this is a void method. Not always will it be a void method. We'll see that in another example in a little bit, where we're returning values, and it's going to matter. You know, I want to be able to return something. But inside of here, I'm going to overload the operator, assignment operator. So the first part is that void, which is my return. The second part is the operator equals. That's the name of the function. Okay. The word operator is going to disappear, but it knows when I try to do an assignment, okay, with a student test score on the right, that this is what I'm supposed to do. What do I do? Well, I'm going to delete the current test scores. Remember, I want to free up that memory, as I mentioned a little while ago. I'm going to then take the student's name. Wonder why they used the term right. Because wrong wouldn't make sense. I know. Why would you pick right? Well, it makes it kind of nice because it's the one that's on the right side of the assignment operator. Okay. And I just did a bad teacher move. I asked a question, nobody answered, so I answered it for the class. Don't let me get away with that anymore. Y'all are turning me into a bad teacher. No, maybe I was never good to start with. I don't know. Okay, so as I said, in line 64, I wanted to free up those test scores because I have a new number of test scores coming in, and I want to get rid of all of that old stuff. Student name gets the value of the one that's on the right side of the assignment operator, copying over to student test scores, how many there are, create the array, copy all of the values over. So I now just overloaded the assignment operator. So when I come over here, I have, can you see my 14.6? Good. Okay, when I come over, I fill an object with Kelly Thornton. Okay, I give her a couple of test scores. I start to create another object, Jimmy Griffith. And then we really don't care much about Jimmy Griffith because we want student 2 to get all of the values that student 1 had. So when I run this, I display student 1, it better be Kelly Thornton. When I display student 2, it better also be Kelly Thornton. And those of you that are playing along at home, did it work? Anybody run it and it works?
Yes, it works.
Okay,
Yeah, it
good.
works.
Good, good, good. All right, so that was overloading the assignment operator. And now we're going to jump to doing something where we're overloading the math operator. I know I just looked, I've actually been talking almost half an hour, which is kind of unusual for me. And I know you all like to type, so we're getting there soon. So what if I decided to create a new class? And the one that we're going to create is this one called feet and inches, okay? And if I said I have a class feet and inches, and I was making a UML chart, feet and inches kind of deal, what fields might I need in feet and inches? No, I'm thinking I'm going to need an int called inches. I'm going to need an int called feet. Okay. It's going to be feet and inches. And then, of course, I could have my constructor to fill feet and inches. You know, I could have, the default constructor. And also, I might want to have a copy constructor. I'd have my sets and my gets. Do we have toString in C++? No. So we'd have to have a display and figure all that out. So here's what I'm looking at. Say I create an object, FAI and 1, and let's see, oh, that looks like fail. Well, I'm also going to create FAI2. And so if I have 2 feet, and in this guy, I have 3 inches, and over in this guy, I have 4 feet, but I also have 11 inches. Okay. So I'm going on a job, and I know for this job how much wood I need. And I know for this job how much wood I need. Well, what if I wanted to get a total? What if I wanted to be able to add these guys together? Well, remember, these are objects, okay? But I'd like to now be able to add 2 objects together. So I'm thinking along the lines of overloading the plus because it's already overloaded. I can add ints. I can add strings. I can do all kinds of things. But what if I want to now add objects I create? Well, I can do that by overloading the plus operator. And of course, if I added these, what would you get?
6 and 14.
I'd get 6 feet. I'd get 14 inches. And I'm going,
2.
yeah.
7 feet 2 inches.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I may need something called simplify to turn this into 7 feet 2 inches. So as much as this is a simple example, you still need to be thinking about, if I'm working with this example, if I'm adding these, what if I said, ooh, what if I wanted to subtract these? One of the first things I'd have to do is, make sure this is larger than this. See if I could. Now I'm starting to think about this. And again, I haven't done any work yet, but I'm making lots of notes. Would there be any advantage to, how would you think about subtracting these? For example, you added these. That's not too bad. We got into a dilemma when we got to 14 inches. Would we ever need yards? I don't know. There's something we could add. We don't have to for this simple example. But if I wanted to subtract, how would you think about subtracting?
Don't you have to sort them first?
Well, what if I asked you this? FAI 2 minus FAI 1. So if I wanted to subtract, what is that? If I wanted to subtract them, how might you subtract those objects? I'm just looking for some math logic.
You could just put a negative and add them. Put a negative in one of the objects and then just add them.
Interesting. Would you have to do negative for both the feet and the inches?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What if I just tried to work with feet and inches?
Could you
I
just
might have to
convert
do what?
Could you just convert?
Yeah, that's another thing. Was that you, Stephen?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea. What do you mean by just convert?
Make it all inches.
Yeah, that might be an idea. Convert everything to inches. That's kind of quick math operations, and then turn it back. And again, maybe this simplify that you wrote, could work where you're modding or doing integer division and modding, and you can call on that. Yeah, that's another idea. So as I'm doing all this, I hope some of you have your math hat on, and you're running wild with, how would I do something like that? How would I convert those over? Okay, so let's go back. And again, I was just talking about adding two objects. And I now want you to go back to your chapter 14 notes. And I'd like it to load up feet and inches version 1. I like the way you move. Now I'm gonna hit OK. Somebody might get car sick with all of this. I'm gonna go to student test feet and inches version 1. And what am I gonna have to do in feet and inches version 1? Looks like I have a specification file, also known as my header file, an implementation file, and it looks like I have to create a project. Is there anyone else using a Mac other than Matthew? CJ, you're working with VS Code, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think Matthew's going to try to work with Xcode, but
Yeah,
if
Xcode
there's
is fine.
anybody else, don't be afraid to get a Mac discussion going on a discussion board to help each other out, or just go direct. Where are they? I double clicked them. Feet inches, feet inches. All right, they're not loading up for me right now. Stop share. Let me try this one more time. Still not coming up. All right, I'm having technical difficulty here for a moment, folks. My computer doesn't like that I'm trying to open up 94 versions of. All right, so I'm just gonna use my book because it kind of froze up on me. But I'm looking at feet inches. And the first thing I'm doing is looking at the header file. I notice that I have two members, feet and inches, and I also have, there's that simplify we were talking about. I have a constructor called feet inches. See, I'm getting some values. F is 0, bringing in some value. Everything's kind of good. I have my mutators, I have my accessor methods, and I have the definition for the two functions I would like to overload. Now, these are a little bit different than the assignment operator, and the reason is I'm returning an object feet inches. Okay, and the other one I just did direct assignments, and it went right into that object. But here, I'm going to have feet and inches returning. Going to have a return type. Okay. Under my, this is annoying, implementation file, I come in and I have my simplify. If inches is greater than or equal to 12, I do the integer division. I do the modulus to get my inches. Else, if inches is less than 0, you know, we got some work going on there where we're going to do some absolute value things to handle that. And now the big things, the overloaded operators. Come here, there we go. First one is to add. This time I'm going to take the right and I'm going to add it to the one on the left. The one on the left is the one that's calling it. And then when I return, it's going to store it. So I need to create a new object inside. The new object, temp.inches, gets the calling inches plus the right side inches. So everybody understand why we need 3 of them. So if I had like object 1 equals object 2 plus object 3, object 3 is the right, object 2 is now the actual calling object, and I'm storing it in temp, so when I return it, it's going to store it in object 1. So I just overloaded the plus operator, and as you can see here, I've overloaded the minus operator as well. Again, we're calling simplify. We have it written, let's just be safe. Simplify. We have it written, let's just be safe. So you have it loaded up, and hopefully you're a little curious and you ran it, and did it work?
The only thing I can see is that for the subtraction part, if your values of like feet and inches is larger than the first, and it returns like a negative number when it subtracts it. So it doesn't actually like check to see like which one's larger, like how we're discussing.
Right, right. Yeah, and again, that could be something you would change in your program and say subtraction cannot, well, yeah, we'd have to really work with that. But for now, we have to have an object returned. So it's going to return something goofy, which will be a flag that you can't do it, or because otherwise, if you can't do it, how would you break out of that function and be able to store it? Yeah, it would just be, yeah, yeah. Any other comments? Okay, go ahead and load up feet and inches version 2. it won't let me open up C++ anymore. What's going on? I know. I'll have somebody else share their screen. Somebody share your screen. Anybody? Version 2, is it loading up? There we go. Thank you, Stephen. Dun, 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 dun. Were you able to load up feet and inch? Oh, here we go. There we go. So just to scroll down to the bottom, this is all I'm looking at right now. I see, so this is added on to, this is the overloaded plus, the overloaded minus, and you notice, oh, I'm overloading some other stuff. I'm overloading, in this case, it says a prefix, and it also says a postfix operator. What would it be if I added using the prefix or the postfix operator? Well, I would be adding, I'm assuming 1 to inches, okay? I don't want you to take a look at it. We're gonna go with adding 1 to inches. So Stephen, stop sharing. Thank you. And come back and we're gonna take a look at my screen. And there is a table of all of the operators that you can overload. It's in the book. The common ones, as we said, were what you saw in these two examples. So what I want you to do is use that first feet and inches that we had open a moment ago. That was 14.8. That was version 1. Well, I have it written, version 1 of feet and inches. All right, I'm going to put you in groups. Basically, you're going to practice what we did today. First thing I want you to do is add a copy constructor to that feet and inches version 1. Some of you should jot this down. Second thing I want you to do is overload the assignment operator. Third, I want you to overload the increment operator that we just talked about, where we're just adding 1 to inches. And fourth, I'd like you to overload the less than operator. What if I wanted to find out if one object is less than the other? First of all, what data type would be returned?
Boolean.
Yeah, a Boolean. So we would be.
What was the first overload
The
you want us
first,
to do?
I want you to add a copy constructor, overload the assignment operator. Rather you do the less than third. I should change the order of those two. And then if you have time, do the increment where it just adds 1. It's a little bit different than what the other ones were. Questions?